How tough a sell is this going to be in Congress? That will be the big story this week in Washington, and we'll hear from Congressman Brandon Williams in just a moment. Here's what's in the deal as it stands now: $136 billion in spending cuts, mostly on domestic programs that don't involve the military. There will be new work requirements for food stamps. This targets people ages 50 to 54 who don't have children living with them. The deal takes back $30 billion in unspent money from a COVID relief bill. It's now a June 5th deadline to pass it in Congress. The deal also greenlights a new natural gas pipeline from West Virginia to Virginia. Tomorrow, action by the House Rules Committee on this could be an early sign of whether Republicans who control the House will hold together to support the package. Republicans wanted more spending cuts, and the White House wanted to raise taxes on corporations and the rich. I asked Congressman Brandon Williams if he'll vote for it.
From what you know so far, is it a yes for you on it or a no?
Well, we're being very careful to read all of the language in the bill. That's the reason we have the 72 hours before the vote. A couple of things in particular that I'm looking for: we have to have meaningful spending reform. I think everybody in America now knows that we have a spending problem, not a debt ceiling problem. And so I'm looking for that language. And I'm also interested in the permitting reforms, things that are going to, quite frankly, allow the Micron development to move more quickly here in New York State. And those are the two principal things I'm focused on. But just so you know, we're looking at it very carefully. And of course, I've been a supporter of Speaker McCarthy's approach, up to this time. So, but we'll read it before we announce our view.
When you read a bill like this, do we know how many pages it is? Is it even printed yet?
We didn't print it out, so I'm doing it all electronically, but it has, specific line numbers. So, page lines, and it allows us to kind of compare notes and flag things. And as we have that conversation. So it's pretty extensive.
Of what you have read so far of the bill, what directly speaks to Central New York? What will be of benefit to us here from what you know so far?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think particularly the permitting reform, which is allows us to move forward on projects much more quickly. So there's some restrictions for the amount of time for environmental reviews, for example. And of course, we want to be careful with our environment here, but it really is used as a tool to hold up projects. Micron is in the tech industry, and I'm also from the tech industry. It just moves at a different pace than any other industry. And so we really need to get the permitting moving and approved so that we can begin construction and they can start this, historic investment in a timely way.
What could derail this right now? I'm sure there's a lot of things. What pops into your mind? One, two, maybe three things that you worry about that could really send this off the rails?
I think number one, you'll laugh at this, but number one is just simply politics. That people really look at it through a political lens of how to score points instead of how to save our country. Number one. I think number two, if it's not bipartisan, if we don't see some people come over from the Democratic side, I think maybe the negotiations perhaps weren't in good faith. I wasn't part of that, so we'll see if the Democrats actually have embraced what the president has announced. And the third thing is, if there aren't real savings, if we haven't turned back from the reckless spending, the American people will be very, very frustrated, and frankly, rightly frustrated with politics as usual.
This week's action in Washington on the debt ceiling will force the town hall meetings the congressman was to host to shift from in-person events to a tele-town hall event. That's going to be Thursday night at 8 o'clock. And we have a link with critical details on how to RSVP to that tele-town hall Thursday night at 8 o'clock, posted now at cnycentral.com. And you do need to RSVP to be a part of that event.